Hello everyone, my name is Maria Baez. I will be going over the topic of continental rifting, its process and features, and example Rio Grande Rift. So in this presentation, I will go over what a continental rift is, what causes it, as well as its process and features. I will show information about the examples of continental creations and how it has and will continue to affect our Earth. So what is continental rifting? Continental rifting is the thinning of the lithosphere caused by buildup of magma in the atmosphere. As you can see in the image, we have in image number 1, labeled 1, we have how the buildup of the magma is making faults into the crust, and these faults will create cracks along the crust. In image 2, you see how the crack has occurred, creating a rift, and now we have the continental crust separating into two different parts, going away from each other. In our third picture, we see how the rift has gotten larger, and we still see how the rifts are pulling apart from each other even more. In our fourth image, we have our rift, which has now created an oceanic ridge, and this oceanic ridge will just get larger over time. Understanding that, now we have two different types of rifts. We have active rifts and we have passive rifts. Active rifts, if you can guess it, are active and do contribute to earthquakes and volcanoes. They are also known to be wider than passive rifts. Active rifts are formed because they have a weaker lithosphere than passive rifts. By them having weaker lithosphere, they are weakened from below, and that causes for the lithosphere to get thin and subside into the earth, causing the active rifting. Passive rifting, on the other hand, are not active and do not contribute to earthquakes or volcanoes. Passive rifts are more narrow than active rifts and are pulled apart. We can see in our picture here how we have two different images. We have under active rifts. In image A, we have the buildup of magma occurring, and it is pushing up towards the lithosphere. In image B, we see a subduction of the crust into the lithosphere, and the magma going up into the lithosphere as well. In image C, we see the continental crust has torn apart, and the lithosphere is gone, and there is faults occurring. In Pacific rifting, we see how we do have pressure in the lithosphere, but we have the separation of the continental crust pulling away from each other. And this is what's different from the active rifting. In image B, you do have the atmosphere going into the lithosphere, but it's not because of buildup of magma. It's just because of the separation of the two continental crusts. And then in image C, you see how they are pulled away from each other. So examples of continental rifts. We have the Thingvellir Rift. It is a rift in Iceland, and it is between the Northern American plate and the Eastern Asian plate. They are separating from each other. It is known that the plates are constantly moving. So since the northern plate is moving away from the Eastern Asia plate, this will cause the rift to grow larger in Iceland. With time, later on in time, we might see the landmass of Iceland form into two. In our other image, we have a better depiction of that rift. And then we have the West Arctic Rift. The West Arctic Rift is a rift that is underground. It has underground volcanoes, and it is concerning because those active volcanoes are causing the Antarctic rift to get warmer. So by this getting warmer, it's causing the ice to melt, and it goes into the whole the water levels rising. More expeditions could be done, but due to its harsh weather, it is hard for them to conduct expeditions over there in the West Arctic Rift. We also have the Rio Grande Rift. So we have the Rio Grande Rift. The Rio Grande Rift goes from Colorado and travels all the way through Mexico. As you can see in the rift, this rift is in the United States. Unlike the other ones, it is pulling away from each other. What does that mean? It means that more than likely later on in the future, maybe years and years from now, because this is occurring very slowly, we will see the separation of two masses. So the United States will probably be torn apart into two masses. Then we have the East African Rift Valley. So this valley is a triple junction. It is composed of three rifts. We have the Lake Albert Rift, the Kenya Rift, and the Ethiopian Rift. Aside from those rifts, it meets up into the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. So this rift is a very powerful rift. It is pulling away from each other. Research has shown that this the landmass will separate into a new continental plate. Impacts of continental rifting. There are many impacts of continental rifting. We have the impacts such as the continental placements. Remember, we had the continental Pangea, but due to the rifts and the movements of the continents, we now have what we have today of the world's placement of the continents. And by the rifts changing and moving, we have had a change in the circulations of the oceans and the temperatures of the oceans. With that being said, with continents moving, we have oceans getting smaller and oceans getting bigger. So only time will tell how big the effects will be on Earth. Also impacts from the continental rifting. We have climate on Earth. If the continental plates are moving, then as they move, temperatures will increase, temperatures will decrease. It all depends on where they go, where they're moving, and at what speed. You won't see a drastic change overnight. It is something that occurs slowly. As we can see, it does affect our ecosystems and living species. So we have some animals that are made for that region due to its climate, due to its vegetation, and because we have our continental rifts moving over time, they are impacting our wildlife and causing them to either migrate to different areas that have the same accommodations as that area, or they might go extinct. It's just a matter of time before we actually see data from those research. In conclusion, we now understand that continental rifting has had a huge importance on our planet, and furthering our knowledge on continental rifting will give us a better understanding on how our planet works. I believe that the continental rifting is a fundamentals on how the Earth is formed and how the Earth continues to be formed, and it is important that we get a better understanding of how these rifts are occurring, so we have a better understanding of how we can adjust and adapt to these changes. I hope you enjoyed my presentation. Thank you.